What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Aux Questa Show. How's everybody doing out there on this Friday, February 16th of 2024 for episode 111? So, guys, I think we finally did it. We got rid of David. Every week he's here. He's like a tumor, but I think he's somewhere. Last I checked with him, he's over in Hong Kong trying to start a revolution to get their country back. So if everyone can go support David. No, I'm kidding. David just can't be here, but you know, every week we give him some shit for being here, but that's okay. He'll be possibly back next week. I don't know. He's doing something. But we have a great episode this week. Before we get going, give us a like, share, follow, subscribe, rate us 5 stars, Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth. Go look for us on the socials at the Aux Questa Show. Just want to talk quickly about last week's show. We had a fun show. We had Seth Weathers on, the CEO of Conservative Dads Ultra Right Beer, and I want to thank Seth because after the show, he told David and I he'd send us some swag. He sent us a whole bunch of Conservative Dad's beer. He sent us a shirt. We got, the calendar that's behind me and everything. So I'm pumped. Really enjoyed that episode. Go give it a listen with Seth. But this week, I'm pumped for a different reason because this person I have on is a congressional candidate, and he's running in our home state, Jersey, where you all know David and I are from. And it's even closer because he's actually running in the district where my mother, Adele, grew up. So I'm excited to have on Billy Prempeh. He is a U.S. Air Force veteran and first-generation American Republican candidate for New York District 9. What's going on, Billy?
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, brother.
Yeah, I'm pumped. And, and I've seen you before because I've seen you made a whole bunch of YouTube videos and over on, Twix, people are featuring a lot of things that you're saying. And it's just exciting to finally get you on. And I'm happy to see that you're running, but I want to ask, what's gotten into you? Why the hell are you running as a Republican in such a deep blue state like Jersey?
So first off, contrary to popular belief, New Jersey is not really a totally blue state. I would say it's more of a purple state. I would even dare say a deep purple state. It tends to lean Democrat because a lot of the most populated areas are Democrat, but historically, New Jersey has always followed a cycle where we'd have a governor for 2 terms Republican, 1 term Democrat, and it kind of follows that. This past election cycle was where that pattern was actually broken, and we can get into that a little bit later on. But where I live, I'm from Paterson, New Jersey. I'm from the 4th Ward of Paterson, which is a pretty rough environment, so to speak. I've lived here since 2016. I grew up in the Riverside part of Paterson up until the age of 26 when I moved here. And it's been pretty rough here. And the reason why is because when you have Democrats in control, they don't tend to put policies, even though they sound good on paper, they don't tend to put policies that actually amount to much changes in their community. And this area has been plagued by voting Democrat for a very, very long time. But it's not actually deep blue. The reality of what's happening is the Republican Party is not strong in not just my county and several other counties. And this is not me bashing my own party. These are just statistical facts. Like, we've not been pulling the wins that we should have been pulling for quite some time. And we have a lot of very motivated, very passionate conservatives and even moderates and in-betweeners that don't know where they fit in, but they know that they don't have a voice at either party. I've spread a message that unifies our country, gets everybody underneath the banner of the United States, and pushes for what matters most, which is America first. If you're a representative, you shouldn't be representing any other country or any other interest other than what's best for your neighbor and your fellow American. And that's why we were able to pull remarkable results. In 2020, we were in a very different district. It was a D+16 at the time, and I was running up against Bill Pascrell, who's a longtime fixture.
Since 87, since a year before I was born, that's when Bill Pascrell got in.
Oh yeah. Well, he actually got into Congress in 1997, but he's been in politics since 1987. Yeah, so he's been in politics for longer than you and I both have been alive.
Yep.
So this is a guy who's been a lifelong politician. He got into politics in his mid-50s, very well seasoned. He's a household name. And a lot of people vote for him purely out of muscle memory. And at some point, I'm sure his policies were good and they did have some positive benefit. But as it stands today, this guy is 87 years old. He has no idea the
See,
problems that the
you're nicer than me.
facing.
You're nicer than me because I don't ever see where he could have a positive benefit because I've said to people, I talk to a lot of people and they're like, this is a different Democrat Party. And I'm like, no, it's not. There's always been leftists pulling the string there, right? There's been some moderates and
Yeah.
they've talked better and some of them have convinced people that they care. But one of the things I said is the reason why your Nancy Pelosi's and your those like older Democrats didn't like the squad, they were pushing too quickly.
Yeah.
That's my theory. They made them kind of go full bore socialism mode where Bernie was always the crazy, but they were doing a slow march towards trying to get collectivism. Then you have the squad coming in going, you're not doing enough. And now what do we see with the party? Those same people that were moving slow are now full on board. Let's make it fully collectivist. So you're a lot nicer than me. I believe that they have never, ever at once had like theories that were good.
The reason why I say that, and this is not to get on the pro Pascal train, because we all know that Basement Bill is no fan of mine, nor am I a fan of his. But just being honest here, I actually have analyzed his voting record and I've followed it over the years. I noticed that there was a sudden shift around the time of 2014, 2016. And that also translates at the same time that Donald Trump came in. A lot of people got the Trump derangement syndrome.
Yep.
And their policies started to shift from what was best for the people and more so towards pushing a singular agenda. I mean, there were things he's done that were great for police officers, for firefighters, and he kept certain things intact. At this point, his only focus is to take down Donald Trump. He has no regard to dealing with how this generation is going to handle the student loan crisis or the inflation that's crippling average Americans, where many have to work multiple jobs. He'll go out and tell people a tone-deaf statement and say, look, we have the best economy ever. More people have jobs than ever, when in reality, people are working more than one job. Like, those numbers are not accurate with what we see today.
Nope. So the job participation rate is definitely more accurate than the actual unemployment rate because one person is participating in the jobs. Just because they have multiple jobs doesn't mean that it's multiple people working in those jobs. So it's definitely a better metric to go with. And so I want to ask you, so what is your plan there to go back at it? Because you had a good showing in 2020 with very little support, and we all know in the blue states, our Republican parties, we got to get behind them. I'm a member of my Republican committee over here, but I'll tell anyone, I dislike most Republicans. I'm a conservative. In order to get anything done, you got to work in the Republican Party because they're one of the bigger ones. How do you plan on convincing people? And the myth has been dispelled, I think, about the wealthy only supporting Republicans, right? Because good amount of your district is Bergen County. Bergen County is the wealthy part of New Jersey. There is a lot of money there. So what is your plan to kind of get those people back into the fold where it's like, let's start doing things correctly again. Let's start being responsible with money. Let's start supporting good cops and getting bad cops out of there. Like, I'm not a thin blue line, fully only supporter.
Right.
I love good cops. Bad cops gotta go. Like, it's like anything else.
Good cop would agree.
yeah, all good cops would agree. The bad cops,
100%. There's not a single good cop that wouldn't agree with that.
Yeah. So what's your plan to kind of get that myth back under control? Get the wealthy back to liking the Republicans, right?
So here's what the truth is. So first off, in my district in Bergen County, a large portion of the district, I'd say about 75% of the district, is South Bergen, which is a lot of blue collar workers. Some of them Democrat, many of them Republican, and it leans either which way. Now, the thing about the blue collar workers is that they're dealing with the everyday, day-to-day struggles, just like everyone else. It's like, you can't get the rose-colored goggles and live on the benefits and completely be disconnected from the problems. They feel it just like we do, and a lot of them are starting to wake up. So when I ran this race, I knew that I wasn't going to get much from the party because the party cares about what helps them locally and amongst their friends and amongst the county. They don't really care about what's happening congressionally. And I'm pretty sure many of these chairs will tell you that to your face. And they don't want to challenge an established name like Bill Pascal or even get behind that. So I knew in 2020 that in order for me to win this race, I had to come up with the philosophy to win this, because I knew that I'm not going to be able to win this race by myself from within. I have to go outside and bring that support in and then go back outwards. So it's like my philosophy is if you're going to run for council, run like you're running for mayor. If you're running for mayor, run like you're running for freeholder. If you're running for freeholder, run like you're running for congressperson and so forth, and just constantly expand, because the people on the outside, for example, you're in New York, you have family that grew up in my area, you have deep roots in this community. So some people say, well, why are you on a podcast with a guy from New York? Well, this guy knows exactly what's happening in my community. He's going to share that message. They're going to hear it. So using that, I've realized very early on in politics that it's not going to take money to win the race, right? And I'll give you a perfect example. In 2020, when we ran, that was all on about $27,000, everything that we did. And we broke a record. We got 31.9%, which is the most the Republicans gotten since 1983, which was a win.
Wow.
So we broke that record. And in 2022, when I decided to run the second time, I had access to different political consultants and big wigs, and I could connect you with this guy. And it really helped blow up my publicity and build my name recognition. But that cost almost $300,000. And it's ridiculous the amount of money that goes in and out of politics. And I found the best results actually being on the street level and talking with the people. Yep. And by doing that, the district was a D+16. After redistricting, it became a D+9.5. By the time election day of 2022 came around, it was a D+7.5.
Wow.
So
that's huge.
Yes. And this was all just ground game, hard work, talking with people, knocking the doors, getting people to register to vote by mail, getting people to the polling stations, and doing all the things that are necessary, because no amount of money can buy, trust and belief in a vision that you have. If they believe it and they see it, they're going to work with you just as hard as $1 million would work for a corporation. And I think that's what matters to actually change districts. That's why I got those results.
And I love it. And I think one of the big issues that we have as a Republican Party is our philosophy of, well, when they get to 30, when they have a family, they're going to eventually become conservative. Where the left is in schools right now, starting at the youngest level, kindergarten, with spreading their message. And, these kids grow up with it. And some of them will turn around and look at bills to pay and be like, yeah, no, the Republicans going to give us better. But a lot of these people, especially we're seeing now, where they're just like sticking to the ideology, and social media has made it so much easier to get those echo chambers and to get like the selective truths that make them feel better. So one of the things I would love to see people running for running for office and even getting in is starting to get our message at a younger age, starting to get into the high schools and getting out with some of this leftist stuff. And I've heard a lot of people say, well, it's a waste of time because, they're not going to vote for us when they're young. And when they're too young to vote, there's no reason talking to them. So you're young. You're like me. We're both in our 30s.
Yeah.
What is your plan to kind of reach into the generation underneath us and even below them and start getting them active and having them become conservatives young and changing people, right? Getting kids that are in liberal households and leftist households and letting them buck the trend, because you see plenty of conservatives with kids that are leftists, and the conservative parents are just like, we don't like it, but whatever. How can we flip that trend around where we're getting leftist parents with conservative kids?
Well, so first off, I want to start that with a couple of things. Is number one, a lot of people don't like my opinion for this, but I think that one of the most brilliant minds in Washington, D.C. is AOC. I don't like her policies. I don't like the things she stands for, but I don't believe she's as stupid as she leads on.
No.
Not only is she not stupid, this woman's very good at BSing her way out of nonsense, right? So for one, you got to give credit where it's due. The second thing is she understands how to get the message to the people. She knows that a lot of people may not be on board with her idea, even amongst the members of DC. But as soon as she grabs that microphone on the House floor and she speaks, now the nation understands what she's saying. So she talked about the Green New Deal for a very long time, long before Bernie Sanders did.
Which one thing bugs me, conservatives can't get the name of that freaking thing right. People call it the New Green Deal, and it's not hard, y'all. It's a Green New Deal.
Yeah.
It's not hard. And they sound so stupid sometimes.
And she drilled it into everybody's head.
Yes.
To the point that Bernie Sanders, a major presidential candidate, picked it up and he took that football to the end zone. Now Joe Biden's doing the Build Back Better. And it's no different than the Agenda 2020, Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 game that they've got. But
exactly.
Her ability to get that message out and knowing that young people are on social media, they're on Instagram, they're on lives, they're on all these things. When I first ran in 2020, they said, you shouldn't waste your time on social media because talking on there, the people that are going to vote are not on there. But it was never impressive to me when someone twice my age is impressed by the things that I'm saying, like, wow, you're so intelligent, and blah, blah, blah. It always impressed me more when someone was far younger than me and they're looking at me like, wow, that guy's a badass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, to me, that's what gives me the resolve to keep going, because like I see a younger person that's like, okay, good. I know if anything happens to me, there's another badass behind me, and that just resonates much better for me.
And have you found that kind of leaning into stuff when because, AOC, for all of her things, when Alex Stein called her the big booty Latina, she could have went so much worse with it, right?
Oh, yeah.
But she kind of, laughed about it, brushed it off, kind of made fun of people like, oh, they just want to date me. Like, she could have went full on Karen. But like you said, she stayed cool to the kids, and especially the young ones that support her. Because it was like, yeah, you dealt with this chauvinistic guy by being a badass bitch. Like, that's the way that they saw it.
Exactly.
So what lessons have you taken from that? And also, you're a black man. What has it been like has there been pushback amongst the black community with you being a conservative, even though there have been so many more black conservatives coming out lately? And I think social media has made that fantastic. But what has that been too?
I don't know if it's because I'm a 6'2", 260-pound guy.
That helps.
I don't know if it's that, but like, I don't really encounter that in 2020 when I was a newcomer into politics and I was just getting in, and I'm out when we're in the Trump hat and I'm doing my thing. And because at the time it was unheard of for a Republican to run as hard as I was running. Like, I had the trucks, the banners, the parade, the noise, everything, So for me to come out, no one in my community came at me that way. I would knock doors in the hood with the Trump hat all the time. And in fact, they're intrigued more so because it's like, yo, there's a Republican at my front door and he looks like me. Right? Now I want to know what the hell are you doing here?
And this dude's obviously hard because he's walking around in a Trump hat. Like,
right,
like,
exactly.
He don't play around. Like,
exactly. It's like you got to give credit, like the same way I give credit where it's due for AOC, even though I don't respect it. It's like you got to give credit where it's like, this guy's got some balls to come in here like that, So it's like, all right, let me hear him out. And the truth is, we all have a hell of a lot more in common than people think. And the problem that I found that unifies just about every other candidate's campaign that I've seen where they've run if they have like an inner city area in their community is they don't vote Republican, not because they don't look like Republicans, but because there are no Republicans. And if there are Republicans, the Republicans don't go to them. Yep. So if they don't show up, why am I going to vote for you if you've already showed me right off the bat that your whole entire party doesn't care? And the truth is, most of these people that are registered Democrat, many of them don't even like the Democrats in their own community. So they just don't vote. They just literally stay home. And sometimes they vote just out of muscle memory because it is what it is. But when you really talk with these people and you show up to the city council meetings, you talk with the people, you present your ideas and you expand. And I'm unapologetic in my conservatism, and no one's going to sway that. Yep. And more people have come to my message because it's like, what I'm talking about makes sense. We got the southern border wide open, and I've been telling you guys since 2020 that they're going to start sending migrants here. In 2021, I went to the southern border. I showed you guys footage. They're going to bring them here. Now they're being dropped off in Sea Caucus as early as December. Now it's here, and we're planning another border trip next month just to show people just how much it's advanced in that short period of time. Our mayor is trying to turn the city into a sanctuary city, so people naturally will start to wake up. So seeing that, it's like, okay, here's this young guy. He came out of nowhere. He's in the worst part of the city, in the worst part of our entire district, who's running, and he's running up against a system and a machine, and no one will help him. The party won't help him. He's built this network all on his own. And he broke a record at 31%. He runs again in 2022. He gets 43.6% of the vote. So it's like, this guy must have a message that makes more sense, because my opponent, 87, doesn't want to come out, doesn't want to debate. Yep. He has young people tweeting on his behalf. And, the contrast is clear. So it's like when someone comes with solutions and they can speak the language and feel the same way, it's very easy to get people to see a different side, especially when they're accustomed to the same old.
And, and your strategy is exactly what I've been preaching for the longest time. It's like, it's taken you now 6 hard years of running, And
Not even 4 years. I've been running since 2020.
Okay, so 4 years of running, it's taken you 4 years of running and you're already starting to change minds. And that's one thing I see, like New York City. New York City in New York over here, a lot of us consider that a lost cause because it's so blue. And the thing is, like you said, no one walks into these projects. No one goes up and down the apartments and knocks on the door. Maybe the first time they look and they say, get away from me. Year 2 comes around. Okay, what do you want now? Why are you coming to my door? Year 3, you look at them, has your life gotten better? Okay, I'll at least listen to you. Year 4, okay, where can I come to your rally? Where can I support you?
Exactly.
Because like you said, you're just showing them that you care. That is the biggest thing. And it always annoys me when candidates go and they write off certain areas. And it's like the areas that Republicans write off are the most populated areas.
Exactly.
So go battle in those areas because you're going to have a good amount of suburban and urban support, and rural support anyway. Right. You don't need, go run some rallies there, but go door to door in the most populated areas. You're doing it the right way because you're not doing it ass backwards. But I feel like so many Republicans that have a similar situation to you do it ass backwards. Let's go shore up our support where they're already going to do it and leave all the rest to the Democrats to just go and walk up and say, yep, vote Democrat again. Thank you.
Not only are they looking at it ass backwards, but they're looking at it very monolithically. And they look at people like they have to fit this template. Okay. They would think that it's like every black guy, I'll give you a template right here. The black guys in Patterson, they're not going to vote because they vote Democrat because the Democrats are there and they don't care about voting. So what's the point, right? When in reality, the truth is listen, first things first, let's be honest here. Do you like paying taxes?
Hell no.
No. Now, do you think someone in the inner city who's already, robbing Peter to pay Paul to do whatever they got to do to pay, you think they care about, do you think they like paying taxes?
Less than probably we do. Honestly, so we're simpatico there.
You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, okay, so good. We connect on that, right? Yeah. Do you want your kid learning about transgender madness in school?
And here's the thing, and I have black friends. Hell no, they don't. More than most white people.
Exactly my point.
So that is very frowned upon in the black community. Don't be on the down low. That is not a good thing.
Exactly my point. So it's like, so all the things I'm asking you are things that conservatives only believe or that white people believe. But the truth is they think the exact same way as you, just that no one's talking to them. So they're not going to be engaged because they know they're talking nonsense and I'm not going to have a seat at the table. So screw it.
And you can go up to them and be like, listen, Democrats don't think you can get an ID. Why the hell are you voting for these people? They're racist as hell.
Exactly.
Republicans don't realize they're being, like you said, they're also being racist because they're thinking of it as a monolith and, don't go support. It's drives me crazy to not want to do that work. And that's the thing, they don't want to do the work.
It's like for example, if I were Donald Trump, I've been hearing a few rumors from a few people that are close to Donald Trump is that he's planning on doing a rally in the Bronx at some point this year. Now, if he does that, I think that's one of the smartest political things that he could do. If he does it in the Bronx, he does it in Atlanta, he does one in Chicago, he does one in Houston, in the most densely. First things first, when he got arrested, did you see how much people in the hood came through? It was like, if they could arrest the president and screw him, they just like they've been screwing me, I'm 100% with that guy.
And on top of that, the people that Donald Trump was getting out when he was sitting there with, the minor weed offenses and things like that, there was a lot of black people that he released in that way. And then even with some of the rappers and things that he was getting out, he connected to the community and this brought him an even closer connection, like you said. And I think it was not only the black community. I think the Republicans overplay that, right? That, the black community connected with him because he got arrested. Okay, racist asses. But no, it was... we all connected with him because it was even middle America, the non-wealthy are if it happened to him, it can happen to us. Exactly.
Yeah, it's the fact that, and that's the thing that, they're pushing people like Nikki Haley right now. Everybody wants the first female president. Sure, that'll be cool, I guess. The problem is, it's not about the fact that she's a woman. We need someone who can actually
not want to kill the world.
Right. Like for example, right. It's my biggest fear is this, and this is after being in the military and just seeing it. It's you're going to have to go head to head with, the leaders of Iran, of Kuwait, of North Korea, Saudi Arabia, right? Many of these countries who already don't look very highly on women. You have to be a very special kind of woman, to be able to put up with that kind of madness. And
are you Margaret Thatcher? Are you Margaret Thatcher? Can you demand that respect from men who look at you as a second-class citizen?
Exactly. Margaret Thatcher's a perfect example. It's if you can't, if you can't captivate it in that way, because it's like, look, you don't like her. She was basically Trump with
Love
with
Margaret
the on,
Thatcher.
essentially,
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's like when I see those kinds of things and they shove this candidate in our face, like this is the one we got to go to, and I'm like, no one can relate to her. They'll say, oh, but the middle class mother, the middle class woman, they're the ones that are looking for that. And I was like, but the truth is, it's like we're in a situation right now where our southern border is wide open. We're funding proxy wars on three different fronts in Taiwan, Ukraine, and Israel. We got a whole bunch of madness happening in the Middle East. We're what, pushing 21% inflation rates. That's probably higher now at this point. The time we're
Gotta be higher.
we got 300,000 people coming into the country every single month. All these problems are happening all at once. I need someone who can decisively and straight up handle this problem like with a sword, with no mercy, because it needs to be handled in that way. Because that's where we are right now. I don't believe someone like Nikki Haley is going to be able to do that. And seeing how she can't even handle tough questions from detractors in the audience gives me all the confidence in the world to know that you're not going to be able to handle these crises as they show up right in front of us.
No way. And that's a big problem. So I want to move on to talking some policy stuff with you because, you're running for Congress, so people are going to want to hear it. Now, I want to start off with a presentation from me that I would love for you to start pushing for. I absolutely hate the project system. I hate it with a passion because it was designed by Martin Van Buren in the 1920s to basically take free black slaves and put them back in a box. That is the history of what the project system is.
Okay.
So can you start to dismantle it and start to make it, for me, again, I'm a conservative, I'm small government, but I would be down with making that something where it's temporary housing and a jobs program, where you could be there, and if you go there, yeah, we'll give you a leg up. Here is a list of trades, businesses that we work with as the government. You can go get trained, go get paid. When you get a job, we'll help you get your first house. Get the hell out. Can you please figure out a way to policy that? Because I read your policy thing and you were really good about writing things out in bill form, which I love about your website.
Thank you. So it's like these are things that I thought of, right? And the reason why I didn't include something like that is, so now that we're talking policy, this is a great time to bring this up. Is like, sure. I believe that if you're going to go into battle or if you're going to make any dire decision, you should have a roadmap and a plan to how you plan on accomplishing this, right?
Yep.
I realize that there are limits to the power that I have at a federal level in Congress, and then there's certain things that I can't affect at a state level. Yep. So a lot of these project programs, many of them receive funding through HUD and through federal funds, but a lot of these are controlled through the state and through local municipalities, which unfortunately I have no control over those kinds of things.
Yep.
Another thing is, for example, in this district I can speak to the most, there haven't been any new project developments per se. It seems like they're moving to a different type of format where it's more townhomes and community-based living. And a lot of these homes have rent-to-own programs at this moment. So that's not necessarily, there used to be a problem in my district. I used to live right around the corner from the project. So I can assure you, I know the struggles and the frustration quite well. Many years, good people there. Don't get me wrong, but the projects, what a time. But anyway, so I feel you on that. But a lot of the programs have changed in a way where they're being more geared towards affordable housing, and some of them have programs where people can buy into them. One of the things that I would like to see is since I can't really control too much with that, my solution was to try and provide more opportunity to these communities, right? In Patterson, I could say, for example, there's a lot of development that's happening here. A lot of it is overdevelopment at this point, but we're also bringing all kinds of migrants, and that's a sidebar issue as well, too. So there's a lot of, so as you can see, there's a lot of problems that happen at a state level that I have to be very targeted with how I'm going to resolve a problem, and not just how am I going to resolve a problem, but when I get to DC, I need people to support this position so we can actually make it happen. Yeah. So I created the Revive America plan, which would resolve the cost of living issue, which is something that I know I can directly attack. And what the Revive America program would do is it's essentially an expansion of the Platinum Plan that President Trump wanted in urban environments. Yep. In this place like Patterson, for example, there's lots of these factories getting knocked down and they're replaced with what? More developments. But that only helps a certain amount of people. When these same factories could be reused, re-renovated, business owners should be able to come back take advantage of those businesses and get tax incentives for renovating them, getting them up to healthy working code, and get tax incentives for hiring people within the county that these buildings are located in. If that's the case, now we can get some more higher paying jobs flourishing inside of our community. People can invest that into their homes, into their lifestyles, and it builds a much stronger economy and more camaraderie within the community by doing something like that. Yep. And we currently don't have an incentivized program to make businesses want to invest and manufacture in the United States. And I think by doing that and partnering that with my freedom of education plan, which we can get into as well, which is my champion plan. That's my baby. And if there's anything that I could pass in Congress, it's the freedom of education plan, is because what the freedom of education plan does is I don't like the current curriculum in many of the schools across the United States. The problem is I can't control that curriculum. A lot of that's at the state level. If you guys have school boards, you need to get good people on the school boards to actually guide and direct the direction that our education goes in. But since I can't change the education or the curriculum, I can provide skills. I can provide skills to businesses, and I can provide skills to students. Sorry. And the way that we plan on doing this is I want to turn every single public school into a trade school. And what this does is I'm very much in favor of school choice and the ability for parents to send their children everywhere they go. The issue that was always faced with school choice, and this is the reason why the bill was written this way, so that when I get to DC, should be able to pass, is with these school choice programs and charter programs, the public schools make the argument and the unions make the argument that it takes away from the public school system.
So here's also a quick question. They're going to come back and say, we already have VOTEC, because Jersey has VOTEC, the vocational tech, where your kids can go for their core classes, your math, science, English, history, and then go for the second half of the day to VOTEC. So I feel like that would be a pushback. What would be your answer to the union saying, hey, we already have something in here for kids that don't want to go to college route, that want to go to VOTEC?
My answer is fantastic, and it's great that you have that. And I don't want a program like that to go away because it's there for a very good reason.
Yep.
What we're talking about is you're talking about kids outside of high school and after high school. I'm talking about children while they're in high school, while they're in grade school, they're able to learn these skills. So the way that it operates is this. A business owner will come to a school and let's say they want to bring a carpentry program. 3 businesses would be able to, 3 or more, it doesn't matter. But let's just, for this example, 3 carpentry businesses are bargaining with school 1 to bring a carpentry program. Business 1 says he'll invest $100,000. Business 2 says I'll give you 2 sawmills and $100,000. Business 3 says I'll knock down 2 of these walls, build the whole entire place, put the sawmills, $100,000, the works, right? Now, the school can choose whichever business they want to work with. Let's say they go with business B. Total investment is about $75 million, let's say, into this school. Yep. That business can now write off $75 million, 100% on their taxes. And the reason why is because 1, the business benefits from having that tax incentive. 2, they're able to create a training pipeline that can either get them as an employee or set them up for skills to start a career if they don't decide to go into college. The parents get a nice education for their children outside of the curriculum that's being brought to them. The children are learning skills and they have an option. And on top of all of this, the unions are not going to be upset about a program like this because 1, you have more people to fill some of these roles. The teachers unions aren't going to have a problem because we're putting more children in our public schools, but we're giving them an opportunity to find a way out. And we don't currently have that. And homeowners, 30% of our taxes goes to financing our education, which many of us don't like anyway. And that's the excuse as to why they say we can't afford these trade programs to begin with. So put it on the backs of the businesses that are already invested. They're going to make them, everybody wins. So for someone to turn a deal down like that in Congress, it really says a lot about that congressperson as opposed to the deal itself.
Now, how are you going to battle through critical theories being inside of the schools, which, obviously the big one that's always talked about is critical race theory, right? But that's just one, gender theory, feminism, all these types of different critical theories that were, basically very similar vein to like Marxist education, a lot of collectivism. And the collectivists are not going to like your presentation because you're teaching independence. You're teaching a lot of individualism. Yes, it's community-based that you're giving a community company a job, but they don't look at that as community-based. They see that as, working for somebody, right? You're giving them your labor. You're giving that's capitalism. What would your way be to kind of get around that in your plan? Because that's definitely going to be their pushback.
My way around that is so first off, it's Marxism. Let's call it what it is. Like, absolutely. That's what it's Marxism. Is my answer to that is like, now, Marxists, are they not for unions? Are they not for workers' rights? Are they not for people having the ability to control their own means to their own production? What better way to do that than to give children these skills to be able to control the means of their production, where they can work for someone or they can start something by themselves rather than being enslaved by debt? If you want to give the children a future, this is an option you have to give them. So it's like, if we want to play that role of we're going to be collectivists and this is working for someone else, no matter how you spin it, there's benefit on both ends.
Now, I'll tell you this, the problem you're going to have with unions, I was in a construction union. They're going to see that using the time to teach students is taken away from their business. And here's why. Because they're going to say, hey, we already have apprentices. We have first year, second year, third year apprentices that need to learn. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to teach your high school kid because I want to get my apprentice to work. And I'm telling you right now, the guys in there are going to say, we're not doing this because it's taking food out of our mouths. It's taking food out of there. And that's the way the union people look at this type of stuff. So you'd be going a lot into the private sector. You'd be getting a lot of non-union workers to do that. And that's where you would live. And that's, again, it would run into an issue of schools are public domain, and public domain tends to keep union, right? So a lot of the union work goes to schools, even though schools bid out and go private as well. They go non-union. But it's just, I like your plan. I'm not saying your plan is bad.
No, I understand.
I'm just giving you all of the things that are going. And someone that I was an insulator in a union, and that's the way these guys think. I'm not going to go there and work and take a kid with me from the high school. Hell no. I'm going to take an apprentice so I can teach him. This kid's not going to come into my trade. This is taking food out of my union brother and sister's mouth. So that's something you're going to run up against. So in order to talk to these union bosses, how would you massage them with that?
So first thing first, just like with immigration, I believe that people need to come into this country with merit. It has to be merit based. The same way I feel about the trades. It's like if someone has the willingness to want to learn how to do something, they shouldn't be prevented from doing that with a bunch of red tape. And I think unions are still going to be able to benefit from this, because while they still have apprentice programs, they have higher advanced programs, there's obviously a lot of things you can't fully teach to an 18-year-old child. If anything, and there's still room for this as well too, where at the end of their 18-year program, they could either get like some kind of time credited to an apprenticeship program, or they can transition into a union, or they can go right into the private sector. So it's like, no matter how you cut it, there's always a pipeline. And I think that should still be available if they choose to do that.
I like that. I feel like you will find some, because a lot of guys in the union are conservative. It's the AFL-CIO that's very liberal. It's the people that are heads of these unions that go and kiss up to the AFL-CIO that become super liberal. And then the liberals talk all sorts of nonsense about false shit they're going to do for them, and they barely pull up for it. So I like your plan. I think that you could win people over. So I want to get to basically two more policies. I love two more policies that you have. I want to talk about your term limits plan. I love it. It will probably go nowhere because these people love being corrupt politicians, but it is a breath of fresh air to have someone like yourself, someone already in like Matt Gaetz, Ro Khanna, who I don't agree on with everything, but Ro may be the most reasonable leftist in Congress right now, because, he had a thing with term limits as well. Your term limit plan is the 8-10-12 plan. What would it do, and why should we implement it?
So so first things first, I hate hearing about term limits. Like I would say this and the freedom of education plan are my two interchangeable bread and butter policies. But I hate when people talk about term limits. And the reason why is because of how it's addressed. They say, well, for us to do this, we have to make a constitutional amendment, 2/3 of the Senate and the House. We got to get all this going on. Right. They make it seem like it's impossible. And it's really not. Because I believe that we can get Congress people to vote for this specific policy. It's about how the policy is going to be written. Yep. Number one, with term limits, no one's going to do it because they say they'll vote themselves out of a job, right? So I'm already thinking this in mind. If I'm going to write this term limit plan, I need to be able to grandfather the existing Congress people into this plan. So if you sign this and you're part of the 119th Congress, it doesn't apply to you. The only way for you to lose your seat is to be voted out. Any congressperson that comes in the class of 120, then they're subject to the term limits. And I think that's fair. Everyone remains intact. There's no reason for anyone to feel fear. And this is something 70% of the country already wants. It's a win. It's a bipartisan win very easily. Yep. Now, the term limits plan doesn't just apply to the politician. it also applies to their staffers and everyone that was along with them. Once you extend that term and you've maxed out, you need to leave DC, just like all of your staffers need to leave DC. When Trump got into the White House and he had Obama staffers, they started cutting his legs. Same thing happened to Obama. You got Bush people that don't roll with you. So it stifles the movement of the country rather than allowing the country to immediately start moving as it should. Now, the term limits of 8 years for the president, 10 for Congress, and 12 for Senate, it doesn't have to be consecutive. It could be spread out throughout your lifetime, but you can do a maximum of 8, a maximum of 10, and a maximum of 12.
And, in reality, that leaves someone, they could still be a career politician, right? You can get 12 in the Senate, 10 in the House, and 8 as a president. So you could in theory, 30 plus years, still be right around 30 years. So you can still get a lot if you're effective in that way, but there are very few people that have that cult of personality to be able to pull that off, right?
Now, that's the good thing about that, though, is because for someone to be able to pull that off from Congress through Senate all the way to the president, you already have the pressure of the term limits on top of you, right? For you to get out at a certain period of time. Now that people know that there's a certain time frame of how long you can be in office, let's say your first 2 years are abysmal, people already have an idea of what direction the rest of the 10 years are going to go. I think because there's no cap, no one really pays that much attention. The same way we got Governor Murphy, we can't stand him, but we're counting the clock until 2025 because we know as soon as that's there, he's out of there and we're free.
How do you prevent guys from going rogue, guys and girls from going rogue if they know their term limit's about to be up? Right? We see Ken Buck right now. I don't know what the hell Representative Buck is doing. He's had a fantastic resume for the most part, up to this Mayorkas vote, where he was a staunch no twice. And it baffles me that a guy who has talked tough on this stuff before, all of a sudden, someone's in his ear telling him to vote no, right? Or he's showing his true colors because he's about to retire. What is to stop somebody from showing their true colors at their last 2 years of their term if they're, a congressman, or the last 6 years if they're a senator? Like, is there anything, or is it just kind of you got to roll the dice and hope this person is true to their word?
Well, it's the same thing with presidential races and with governor's races as well, too, where it's like, the whole state is counting on this guy has to go because we can't do another 4 years. It's the same exact concept. What I think is going to happen is that as Congress people are approaching towards the end of their terms, this is just, a fact. For the same things you just said, they're going to run very hard primaries. And I think that's totally fine because there should be competition. There should be different pieces of information and ideas. And we need people to actually put their ideas on the table to fill a seat like that. I think that the seat should be carried with the level of prestige. And for example, you can't be the world champion forever without realizing that someone's going to take you down at some point, right? And it's all about endurance if you can keep it up. If you're a congressperson that's effectively, you're going to win undecidedly, decisively. Yes. But if you have a situation where people like this guy is going a little bit iffy, the people not only will sense that, but other candidates will sense that, and it'll force them into harder primaries. But that's just a part of the beast that we have to deal with. And I think that's the way that our republic is supposed to operate anyway.
And I agree. And I think, term limits they should be there. At this point, they should be there. And I think there is a growing movement on both the populist right and left to kind of get this done because, your populist leftists like the Squad and things like that, they do come in the middle. Like you see, people criticize Matt Gaetz for walking across the aisle with them, but there are some things that the populist right and left agree on, like no more forever foreign wars. They come together on that. Term limits is something they can come together on. And we've seen conservatives do this and do it on their own. I forget who it was. Trey Gowdy. He did 6 years and got out. He said for the get-go, I'm going to serve 6 and be out. I don't believe I should be in Congress that long. Trey could have stayed a lot longer. He was a popular congressman. But he got out. Obviously, he has a show on Fox News, so he's not hurting. But, that's the thing. And so I think that we could see some of that coming together. And I like your plan. And I think you're going in there with some support. So another plan that's really interested me that you had was the peace plan about foreign wars. That's a huge topic right now. We're thinking World War III is about to happen. What is your peace plan?
So to vote for peace plan, so referendum votes I'm typically not a fan of because they can lean either which way. Yeah. And, usually you get a lot of activists that'll vote in those kinds of things that'll shift it in a way you don't really want it to go in. But at the same time, I think when it comes to war, when it comes to actual war, I think this is something that should require a referendum vote. And the reason why I say that is because people's lives are at stake. 340 million plus people in the United States lives are at stake. If we're going to go to war, I think every single person, and I get it, the Constitution says like, well, yeah, you voted for the representative to go in there and represent you. The problem with that is we all know that a lot of these politicians have personal interests and different dealings and different connections that lead them to sway to vote in a certain way. So I'm not taking away Congress's ability to vote or create a declaration of war. What I'm saying is before it ever even gets to that point, there must be a referendum vote across the nation that people will have to vote in. And when this happens, I believe that it should be declared a national holiday, just the same way that I believe that election day should be declared a national holiday. In these big, key, pressing moments where it's like, hey, do we nuke these guys or not? Or are we going to go to war? We're going to make a declaration of war. Should we continue to send funds to Iran or to Israel or to Pakistan or wherever these countries, if we're going to send money to these places, since it's our tax dollars that we've worked for, many of us are pacifists. I'm a Christian, for example. I understand war may be necessary at some points, but at the same time, it requires a lot of reason, rationale, logic, and thorough thinking before you make a decision to go and kill someone on the other side of the world, especially when many people don't understand the full ramifications of what's going on. There may be some political people that understand more so, but someone out on the street who's a tax-paying citizen who's going to have their dollars spent on these kinds of wars has a right to say, no, I don't want to go to war. They have a right to say that because it's the same thing with abortion with me. Like, I don't want my money going to finance Planned Parenthood and go, you want to go and kill babies? I'm 100% against that. But if you want to donate to that organization and you guys are using your charitable donations to do that, fine. Not a single dime in tax dollars should go to that.
Agreed.
Right? This is your prerogative. And the same thing with this war. If you want to go and donate to the war in Ukraine or donate to any of these military efforts around the world, it's your prerogative to go and donate and do that. But you shouldn't force us to spend our money. And Congress shouldn't make decisions to go and drop bombs and put 345 million people's lives as collateral to secure these kinds of wars, right? If we say yes, it goes to Congress, then Congress decides and up the president and the standard plan. So that's the Vote for Peace plan. It's a small safeguard that I believe will keep us away from potential war. Now, this is in the event that there has not been an attack on the United States. No one in America has been hurt. Now, in the event that there's been an attack and there's a terrorist attack here, obviously that rule will get suspended. It's
absolutely,
gloves are off. You just hit us. But if it's like, hey, they're saber rattling over there, this is what's going on, they just hit our ally, this is what's going on, we need to decide how we're going to move forward here.
Definitely. So in that plan, would they have to wait until a national election is scheduled? Or can the president go on from the Oval Office and say, I believe that we need to go do this. This is X, Y, Z. I'm proposing that this Tuesday, on this day, we have a national election for our, to vote for if we can bring a vote to Congress for war. I'm requesting
absolutely.
This. Would they be able to do that as the president?
Absolutely, and I think that that's necessary, and I think that people should be given the accommodations to actually make that vote. And I think on election day it should be the same thing as well too. Like only on and whether that's the government giving some kind of tax write-off or tax break for businesses for the account for lost time or whatever the case may be. I think that businesses should be afforded that if they apply for that program or however that's going to be done.
Yep.
But give people the opportunity to actually make it to the polls and do it. So there's no excuse as to why no one has done it. I want it to be a national thing. Everyone is aware of it. It must be done this day. This is something that's very important and everyone has to decide.
So I want to shift to something a little different. We talked about the border, but I first want to start with legal immigration and legal immigrants, because I work in a job. I teach people how to drive now. I'm a driving instructor on top of doing this podcast. I deal with a lot of, immigrants, people that have the working papers. They're here legally. One of the biggest complaints I get from a lot of them is, I'm a doctor in my country. I can't do that here. I had a person that hooked up central air in my house. Great guy, older guy. He was a physicist in his country, in Georgia. He can't do it here. We always talk at the Republican Party that we want merit-based people. We want skilled workers to come over here. But then I talk to people like that, and where's the ability to allow them to use these skills? Would you think of proposing a bill at some point where we can present, get the biggest minds in these fields and present a difficult aptitude test to allow these immigrants with skills to come over here, take that test, and if they pass it, you're good. we recognize you as a physicist here, because my thing is, if Joe Schmo over in Uzbekistan is a physicist and has a breakthrough as a Uzbekistani physicist, everyone in the world's going to acknowledge it, right?
Oh, yeah.
They're going to peer review it. But because that guy steps on American soil and becomes an American citizen, all of a sudden his whole physics degree in Uzbekistan goes out the window, and he now has to start working, most of the time, jobs that are blue collar instead of something where he has an extreme skill in. Would that be something that you would consider?
So it's funny that you bring that up, because my family are Ghanaian immigrants. They're from Ghana, and there's something that's going on in Ghana that's been happening since about 2018 called the Year of the Return. And what they're doing is, Ghana was a country where a lot of slaves came through and went to the United States. Many parts of Africa came through there, right?
Yeah.
So what they're doing is they've created a program where many Americans here in the United States, if you're a Black American here, you can get Ghanaian citizenship and you can get access to all these different kinds of programs. And the logic is very smart, because ever since they started a program like that, Ghana has also advanced in several different sectors, because now you've got foreign income coming into the country.
Yep.
You've got foreign American, Western trained individuals that are coming with their information and their technology and their skills and their assets, and you're helping to build Africa. So I believe the exact same thing should happen in the United States. It's ridiculous that someone could have tremendous skill and it goes to waste and they're a pauper flipping pancakes, when this guy could be saving millions of lives with just a little tiny breakthrough, So I agree with that 100%. Like, if someone wants to come into this country and you are a doctor and you have the skills, I think the test will confirm if you really are a doctor or not. So I think that's very fair to do.
Yeah, and it should be difficult, and it should be something where if you're someone and you fail it, it's not go away. It's okay. These are now course recommendations. Like, here's what we recommend.
Right.
These are the things you should look into. These are, this is where you're weak on. We can recommend these courses over at a university. Like, here you go. Like, because I feel like we should be helping these people, and then that would make more skilled people want to come here even more.
Absolutely.
Because then they'll be like, okay, I can go do my job in America. I can get a better life. I can live a safer life while also doing what I trained at university for in my country.
Absolutely. And I think that's the type of immigration that I'm 100% for.
Absolutely.
You came in the right way. You put your hand on the Bible. You became a citizen. You waved the flag. You came in like everyone else. You're doing it the right way. You respect our laws. You're not being a jerk. And you have skills to offer our country and to offer your family, and you want to have that American dream. Hell fucking yeah, get behind that guy for sure. Like, I think that's something that we should be promoting, because when we have a system where we're promoting, oh, we'll give you a free cell phone, a gift card of $500, new haircut, new fade, you get nice Nikes, we'll put you in the Roosevelt in New York City. Come on. You know what I mean? It's like, do I really want to be, you're better off staying a doctor in Uzbekistan. You know what I'm saying? At that point, because now you're competing with people that don't have the same caliber or of understanding or aptitude as you do.
Yeah.
So I'm 100% on board with that. In fact, you gave me something to think about, because like that, I think that's something I want to add to my my immigration platform. So I really like that concept.
Call it the Cuesta immigration plan. No, you don't have to.
That sounds good. Sounds good.
Maybe one day if I run for Congress, we'll work together. We'll do it together. But yeah, no, that's definitely, because my thing is, as a conservative, I've absorbed conservative talk radio and things like that. I am so tired of just hearing politicians saying we want merit, and it's like, no, you don't, because you don't give them the ability to use it. So
right,
I would love to.
That's exactly how I think. It's like, I don't like rhetoric. I need a solution to the rhetoric.
Exactly. So I love that. So are there any other policies that you want to bring up now here that I haven't mentioned that you think is important for people to hear?
So one policy that we didn't really get into that I think is important to share is the blockchain ballot plan. Now, this is
that's interesting.
This is a plan that's still a work in progress, and it's something that I'm still working with. But I've come up with several solutions to handle our election integrity problem. It doesn't matter whether you're Democrat or Republican, both sides to some degree. Oh, 2016, it's the Russian collusion. 2020, oh, it's the Democrats. So don't give me that our elections are fair nonsense, okay? Because both of us think that there's something shady going on.
Well, 2020 was the most secure election of all time.
Of all time. Not a single fraud vote ever.
Not a single fraud vote ever. Not like they haven't found it in Tennessee and Atlanta. And now it's all coming out. The new election's coming up. They're saying, oh, what happened? But no.
Right. Exactly. So what the blockchain ballot plan is, first off, are you familiar with how the blockchain works and how it operates?
I have an idea. My dad messes with it a little bit, but I've never. So blockchain is typically, and I was going to ask you this, blockchain typically deals with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a lot of your cryptocurrencies.
Right.
And that's basically what it's known for. That's where I generally know it's for. I know it can be used as a very secure information only can be like read-only type of thing. You can't change it when it's in there.
Right.
How would you, for a layman like me, and I want to hear you explain this, I hear blockchain, I think Bitcoin, I think cryptocurrency. And I think that would scare a lot of people because a lot of people only know blockchain because of crypto. So how would you separate that?
So think of it like this, right? Your social security number, right? Only you know yours. Don't say it out loud, but only you know your social security number, right? That number gives you access to everything that the government has to offer, right? The only thing that keeps that secure is the fact that you know.
Yep.
Right? Now imagine you take that same exact concept, right? The government has a database of all this information that's unchangeable, right? What makes the blockchain special is it has access to a ledger of information that's unchangeable. And everyone has a copy of that ledger. So if someone tries to change their personal ledger and say, hey, Alex gave me $1 million, for example, and you didn't, if my ledger doesn't match everyone else's, we know exactly who committed the fraud. It was Billy, right? So I don't commit fraud. I'm just using this as an example.
Politicians should not be saying Pascal, if you clip that, I swear.
You can go ahead. I can take a joke. But so now taking that same concept as your driver's license, now change that to as your social security, change that to your voter ID now, right? Now, obviously the voter ID would have to be encrypted in a longer number, just like how Bitcoin, so that whole system will change. Yep. We already have a system called the DMV where everyone's got all of these. Everyone's got that.
Yeah, but don't you know inner city black folk don't know where their DMV is, apparently, according to this? They have no idea.
Well, listen, man, if we can give migrants $500 on gift cards, we can definitely spend $25 with every single American to get one of these cards, right?
I agree.
My parents in Africa, all right, and from as far back as the 1960s or 1950s, you can't even vote without a voter ID. And that's secondary to your state driver's license, your state license. And even with that, let's say you're not a citizen in Ghana and you try to vote. Like, let's say, oh, Alex wants to vote. Okay, Ghana, he needs to prove he's from Ghana. Well, how does he do that? He has to get 2 actual Ghanaians to go to a freaking judge and then sign an affidavit and swear to God that this guy's Ghanaian. And if he's not, all 3 of us are going to jail, right? So now you mean to tell me that they're more secure than we are in the United States, and there's people that live in the city, that live in the skyscrapers, that live in the villages, and they've all got one of these? I don't buy that nonsense that we can't do it, because we definitely can. Right. So you take that encrypted voter ID, now you get that into your driver's license or your voter ID. Essentially, there's going to come a time where we're going to have probably real ID. Everyone's using the singular type of identification.
And I hate that. I hate all that. I don't want any CBDCs. I do not want any digital IDs, because that is, Billy and Alex, I heard your conversation. You're both conservative. No meat this week for you. You can't buy meat. You can't buy this. You can only get bread and grain and maybe some milk. That's all. I don't like any of that.
I'm totally not with that as well, too. But in order for a system like this to work, it needs to be a public decentralized system, right? This has to be a public decentralized system because...
So real quick, you went on Timcast before, right? Was Ian on the same show as you? Because Ian Crossland is all about exactly what you're talking about.
I don't know if he was on that day. I don't recall.
He is. You're barking right up Ian's alley.
Yeah, because it's like... Now, if I go out and I vote, right, because I think everyone should have an ID when they go out and vote, you put that into the system, you put that into the card, or let's say you vote by mail, right? Because this is another thing, because even the blockchain ballot plan would still secure the vote by mail ballots, which I don't really like. But now, if you have a ballot printed, if they can print my name, my address, and all that, and put it in this fancy, intricate envelope, they can definitely encrypt it with my own identification and my own ID that I can only unlock with a number that I know. The same way that when you file your taxes, there's a number that you know to file your taxes, right? Everybody has to file their taxes. So I don't want to hear, oh, I forgot my PIN to vote. Okay. So how do you get everyone wants their tax refund. So don't give me that nonsense. It's absolutely possible, right? So if you're going to vote by mail, you have to actually associate that PIN with that ballot to send it in, and that's how it's verified, and that's registered to the blockchain, right? So if we can't do it that way through voter ID, for example, this is a more radical approach, but I think this is something that we need to potentially consider. There has to be some safeguards around it, but I think it's a very strong possibility to secure our elections in the future, especially if you utilize the blockchain, is our cell phones, right? Which sounds like a bad idea at first, but you trust your bank account with your fingerprint and your eyeballs, right? You trust all this stuff with this, right? I am not Alex. I can't look at your phone and access your bank account, right?
Even if you're much better looking, that's why.
Well, there's that. I can't access your bank account, but if you went onto someone else's, a completely different person's phone, and you use that same facial recognition software to access your personal account, it's going to unlock because it's you, right? Only you can unlock this phone. Only you can cast that vote. Only you can register it to the blockchain. So the voter ID becomes yourself. The scary part is now we're in that realm of now we're a part of a biometrical database, but that's something that I believe, unfortunately, it may get to that point until, and if all else fails, paper ballots and lock it on the blockchain associated with a number that only you would know. It's impossible for all the system. There's a paper trail that way.
Then you're going to have Hillary taking people's eyes out.
Oh. You know what? If they take people's eyes out, then listen, we can still remember the pin in our head. They can't get your brain, they can't get your thoughts.
Yeah. So the one thing that I would ask, because I do like tech, I am kind of a nerd for stuff like that. Why isn't the blockchain hackable? You said that like the ledgers need to match up, but I kind of believe if it's digital, it can get hacked at some point. Like people are smart.
The reason why is because the way the blockchain actually works is like it's not on one centralized server or one centralized location. Everybody has a copy of this same blockchain, and it's a peer-to-peer network, kind of like file sharing or uTorrent. When it has to be able to. I have to be able to access your computer to get that data. And if you're
going into the Napster days,
oh yeah. and if you're offline, but someone else has that same file as you, I would just connect to that person because he has some of the information that you've got. It's the same concept with blockchain. So long as there's at least, if the whole entire world's internet went down, so long as there's at least one blockchain still existing and it's on the internet or it's safe somewhere, the entire system can be re-uploaded by that one copy, right? So it's like in order for that system to be frauded, you have to shut down the entire network, which would be impossible if it's expanded that far.
That's interesting. And I like it. And I feel like the fact that you're knowledgeable about this helps because I hear a lot of people talking about blockchain and things like that, and they only know such rudimentary info about it. But the way you explain it and put it in good terms, and that's what it is, right? Especially if you're a politician trying to present something like that, put it in layman terms, make it as simple as possible so people can understand it because some things are hard to understand and it don't matter. You can have a PhD and it's like you just might not understand certain things. So that I like the way you explained it. I thought that was awesome. I think that honestly, I think that you would be a great member of Congress. So I want to ask you this. Do you think at this point in our nation, are we closer to national divorce or reconciliation as a country? I
think we're more closer. This is the conversation that nobody wants to have, but I think our country is very close to, God forbid, a civil war, for sure. And I don't think the Civil War is going to go down the way that many people think it's going to go down or it's going to work out the way it does because we've got close to 10 million people that have come across our southern border, and that's just people we've documented.
Yep.
For all we know, the real number is about 15, 17 million people that, another 7 million or so are unaccounted for. We don't know who these people are. We don't know what they're about. We don't know if they're waiting for that one critical moment to do that one critical attack. They're probably waiting for that one general guy to come across or that one trafficker or whoever to do that one, give them that one go ahead, and they'll do it. And we're at a point now where our federal government is now in a standoff with the state of Texas. 25 other states are now saying, no, this is ridiculous. We're going to stand with Texas. You have actual state. We haven't seen a situation like this since the early days of this nation. And here we are where this is happening now. And the thing that's scary about this is all it would take is one person throwing a rock at the other person and it is game over. It is a shot heard around the world that nobody wants to happen. But the scariest part about that is the average person who is disconnected and is unaware of what's actually going on. Many will resort to looting, will resort to bank runs and all kinds of chaos. And it'll probably be like that for maybe 2 or 3 weeks or maybe a couple of months. But then within that time frame, our enemies who also have a stake in taking from America, we owe a lot of people a lot of money and their economies are also failing too. So they got to come and collect that check. Because if we fall, they all fall. Now you got people coming into your country while you're fighting amongst your neighbor, and you're fighting amongst people that aren't your neighbor, but they're in your country illegally fighting you. And then you have our government fighting amongst one another. So I think it won't be a civil war. I think it'll be a complete implosion of our country if we don't, for one, get it back on the right track, restore our constitutional republic, and deport the people that have come in here the wrong way. And like I said, my family, we're immigrants. I'm a first generation American. My family are immigrants, but every single one of them, all 14 of them came into this country legally the right way. They all were in poverty. They all were struggling. They all had a hard time, but they did it the right way. If I go into Mexico and I try and do that, I'm getting locked up, bro. And I don't want to get locked up in Mexico.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm second generation. My grandparents, two of them came from Ecuador, two of them came off the boat from Italy. So, I'm exactly same as you. Our family did it right. I had aunts and uncles and great aunts and great uncles that were immigrants. So it can be done. Now, I think that when we think of Civil War too, I think a lot of people think of it the wrong way. They think that everyone's going to be at war. The reality is most people are going to go to work every day.
Yeah.
Most people are going to go, and then what they're going to do is they're going to look on the screen and go, no, another skirmish in Seattle. The Union held off the separatists this time. Like, that's what it's going to be. Most people are just going to go to work. Yeah. And it's going to be such a weird time where you're just going to be like, oh, okay, now I got to pay $26 for that thing of eggs. That's what it's going to be. You're going to be hurting in terms of economically, but outside of that, most people aren't going to be fighting in the war. So how can you get something of this dire need across to people that we need to make a change when in reality, even when it's going on, politicians are going to be playing it and people are going to be like, well, I'm just paying more, but I'm fine. Like, I don't care about this stuff. It's going to blow over. How do you get them to realize how dire this situation is?
Well, ideally, we never have to get to a situation where that's happening. And I think it's going to take firebrand type of politicians to get that job done. This, we have to be politically correct and take the higher road, and we got to be calm and remember we're conservatives. Nonsense. Because that's what got us to this position to begin with. Liberals are going to push their policies no matter what you say or what you think, right? Conservatives are doing the exact same thing. They just do it 75% slower, and they create their own little roadblocks and amongst infighting. So they essentially become two birds of the same feather, just that one of the feathers is a little bit weaker than the other, but it's still the same freaking bird, So when I see those kind of things, we're going to need someone that's actually going to be able to get into Congress and say the things that need to be said without fear. And it's like I said about AOC, the most powerful thing in Congress, because there's going to be times where I'm going to go into Congress. Let's say I'm on a committee where I take the Freedom of Education plan, for example, and I'm not on the Education Committee. I'm on, let's say, National Security, for example, right? The people that are on the Education Committee, they could rewrite that whole bill 7 which ways and be like, okay, we're going to give $7 billion to every school board president across the country and $15,000 to Uzbekistan. I don't know why we keep bringing up Uzbekistan, but we're going to give $15 billion to Uzbekistan, right? And
we like Uzbekistan, by the way. We got nothing.
Right, I don't got a problem with that. But then that bill comes to the House floor and all the Republicans shoot it down. And then they say, see, look, the Republicans can't work together. They shot down their own bill. So it's like these kinds of things happen in D.C. But I realize that if I get on that microphone, I can talk to the people, and the people are going to push the legislation so that they push their Congress people to push the legislation, and they'll get the message. The same way that nonsensical, stupid, demonic Green New Deal bill started with the silly bartender girl is now at the desk of the president under a different name. Yep. It's the same exact strategy. If I can tell the people en masse and I can break that message down to the people en masse, that will push the nation forward. And I think that's where the real power comes in, as being able to represent a portion of the nation.
So I just want to ask you a few more things, and you've been awesome. You've been gracious with your time and everything, and I appreciate you staying on and jumping on. But just a few more things. So one thing I've noticed on X, and we all know Twix isn't reality, but it does have an impact, right? Christian nationalism is rising up, and it is a problem because I'm a Christian as well. I was raised Roman Catholic, but I'm just now more of a Christian. You said you were a Christian. But people are perverting the phrase Christian nationalism. And if you read what they actually are going for, they're saying that the Constitution is old and dry. We need to have, more of an authoritarian twinge. And then you have some very prominent conservative commentary. I think this maybe is a few months ago, talking about the positives of Franco.
Of who?
Franco, the fascist dictator from Spain. And how can you get in there and bring some sanity back, right? Because you're obviously more on the populist conservative right, like I am, more in the Trump area and things like that. Even though Trump is a Clinton Democrat, people need to all understand that. I like Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump has done great things, but he's not this uber conservative, right? He's no Rush Limbaugh. So how do you get some sanity back and push back against some of these like far right people who are basically saying we're on the right, but we don't believe in the Constitution? How do you kind of separate, what these people are pushing for, and to kind of get more of a sane message again back in there?
Well, I've been around various different types of people in politics. I've been around people that are, still for the Confederacy and support the Confederacy. I've been around Proud Boys. I've been around, regular suit and tie Republicans. That's the first time I've ever heard that Christian nationalism is on the rise and scares me. Now, first off, I should also say for the record is that like I am very Christian, and it really, especially now at this phase of my life, it dictates a large portion of how I carry myself and how I make certain decisions. Secondly, I am conservative and I'm a Republican, but I am a nationalist. And I want to say that front center. That's not a word that I personally am afraid of. I know a lot of people are afraid of the nationalist word, but
Yep.
I think every single nation in the world should be nationalist. You should be proud of your nation. You should want your nation to thrive. You should care about the interests of your nation and push your nation to be the best. And you should come first before anyone else. I think if you're in Portugal, you should be very Portugal first. Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
If you're from India, you should be very India first. Yep. I think that's totally normal and that's right. And if you're Christian and if that's your faith and that's the predominant faith, I think you should be behind that. Maybe this is a subculture of politics I haven't explored yet or I haven't seen yet, but I haven't seen Christian nationalists saying that they don't support the Constitution. Even that, I didn't even know that was actually a term. I just happen to be Christian and a nationalist.
Yes, Stephen Wolf is an individual that's pulling in. A guy that I follow that's brought a lot of attention to this, I don't know, James Lindsay, who, he runs New Discourses and everything like that. And he brings a lot up about, a lot of the Marxism stuff going on in collectivism. He's kind of made it his life goal to just destroy collectivism in this country.
Right.
And he's a guy that I don't think we agree on much of policy. He was an Obama voter and things like that. He did vote for Trump, but overall, I think he's trying to do good things. So if you want, go listen to some of his New Discourses stuff on Christian nationalism, because he'll explain a lot better than what I can about what they're going for. So the last thing that I want to ask you, and I feel like this is one of the most important things, Republicans love to run, sound great, sound very conservative, say all the right things, and then get there and they become Lindsey Graham. Why should people in New Jersey vote for you and trust that they're going to put in a conservative individual to go and do the conservative ideals that they put forward?
So first things first, I don't want to be a politician. And some people are freaked out when I hear this. I don't want to be a politician. Not in a million years did I ever think I was going to be a politician. This is proof positive that I never thought I was going to be a politician. I said, you know what? I came out of the military. I'm going to grow my hair out. I'm going to do my thing. You don't really see politicians look like that. I'm going to live my life in a very different way.
Yep.
When I got into politics, it was after, several eye-opening events took place in my life. And, seeing the direction that our country, it actually changed, under President Trump by the time 2020 came around. And I wanted to keep that going because for the first time in a while, I actually had hope for the future that our country would be able to wake up and move past this. And then the results of the 2020 election and all that happened. And, I saw those kinds of things. Now it's a necessity, right? I myself will adhere to my 8-10-12 plan, even if I'm grandfathered into that bill, because I don't want to. I'm 34, okay?
Yep.
I'm not trying to be past 44 and I'm still in politics. That's ridiculous. There's a lot of the world to see. I want to throw my kids in the air and have fun and live my life. You know what I mean? You should be able to write legislation and live under the same policies that you've created. You shouldn't be isolated and protected by DC and your other bureaucratic friends because, you've got the connections. No. I want to return back to the people and live under these same exact things. And I don't intend on being there long. If I can get every single piece of legislation that I desire, or even if it's not my legislation per se, but it's in that same lens of, let's say school choice or opportunity zones, and those things get accomplished in my first year, I'm done. Because these are the things that I care about. And this is what people care about. I'm like, great. Because first off, if you're a politician and you've been in politics longer than 10 years and you haven't gotten anything accomplished, that means you're a failure. That means you're not an effective politician and you should not be there. You know, if you got term limits like that in place and you're hitting the goal every single time, people are going to keep you there until you max out, and you're going to have to find the next guy to do that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I want to create that same kind of culture. And I can't remember the congressman's name who recently just announced that he was going to retire, and he did about 8 years in 8 or 10 years in Congress. He's like, I'm done. And this was very recent that this just happened. And I think that's very honorable, and I think that's noble, and I think that's what you should do. You know, if the president does 8 years and he's done, he can't do any more, that's it. Go ride your horse off into the sunset and enjoy the country you created. You know, that's what you're supposed to do. So if their concerns is about sending me in and I'm doing the wrong thing, I welcome the criticism. I want the criticism. I need people to be on top of me, because if you're not on top of me, for one, I'll become like a Chris Christie, which is one of my biggest fears. I don't want to be a fat, delusional, disconnected
grifter onto whoever he thinks is going to get him ahead.
I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy. And if I ever get to that point, then it is up to the people to get rid of me. And I should be humble enough to understand when you're past your mark. I think everybody should understand that. And if I'm not doing my job effectively, I don't hold it against the people to get rid of me. And
lastly, before I let you go, Matt Gaetz, I don't know Matt, but he famously says he doesn't take lobbyist money. Now, like I said, I don't know Matt. I don't know if that's true or not, so I'm not going to say yay or nay. Would you take big lobbyist money if you were there?
See, so now that's the thing that depends, because that's also a trick-loaded question. Now, I don't like lobbyists as much as the next guy, but what people have to understand about DC is like there's also lobbyists that support the same things that you and I support. Yep. For example, there's lobbying groups that focus on school choice and trade programs. There's lobbyists that focus on, anti-abortion and pro-life causes and these kinds of things. So yes, lobbying is a very bad word, and I don't like lobbyists. But unfortunately, and the reason, and this does suck, they're a necessary evil in politics. There are some very nefarious lobbyists as well, too, though. Yes. What I will say, though, is if anyone was in politics, if you're either a politician or you're a staffer in politics at all, once you expand that term of 10 years, you are maxed out. You can't come into politics. And I believe that if you max out in your term in politics, you cannot become a lobbyist either. You shouldn't be able to transition to become a politician. Absolutely not. You should, once you're done with DC, you are out of DC, goodbye. Like, you leave, go back to Minnesota or wherever, that's it. You can't lobby, you can't sell, you can't do anything like that. So I'm not necessarily for or against lobbying, but I am very mindful of who I take the money from. Like, for example, if it's a PAC that, hey, man, we actually support school choice, and we're
like 1776 PAC or something like that.
Yeah, like, you know what I'm saying?
Good work, yeah.
Right, or like veterans PACs or these kinds of groups that lobby on behalf of, traumatic brain injuries, for example, or something like that, right? Like, I can get behind those kinds of things. I think it really comes down to the politician. Are you a scumbag and you're willing to sell yourself out for things you don't have any interest in, but you'll do it for the money? Yep. Or are you willing to work with the people that share the same cause? And I've noticed that a lot of these lobbying groups that have a good cause that many people actually care about usually don't have a lot of money, but they do have a lot of connections and know a lot of people that can connect you to people that can help you. So I think it really comes down to who you're going to work with, and be mindful of that. And that's what my stance would be in terms of lobbying.
I love that. Yeah, Billy, thank you so much for coming on. This is an awesome show, man.
Excellent. Yeah, this is actually one of the best interviews we've had this year. So I appreciate this, man. This is good. We got a lot of good questions out of the way. So that's good.
I appreciate that 100%. So once again, he's Billy Prempeh. He is a U.S. Air Force veteran and first-generation American. And most importantly, he is a Republican candidate running for office in New Jersey, the 9th District. If you are over there, go vote for him. Where can people donate to you? What is your website, plugs, whatever you want to do?
So my website's www.billyprempeh.com, just like how it's spelled on my shirt, billyprempeh.com. You can find me on X, where I just started doing a lot more X Spaces, and I'm going to try and spend a lot more time on there at Billy Prempeh. And on Instagram, you can find me at some guy named Bill, where I'm the most active.
I love it. I love it. So yeah, awesome having you on. We love having the candidates on. We love talking to you. I could talk to you for hours more, but I always make the joke that I'm not Joe Rogan. No one's going to listen if it's like a 6-hour podcast from us. But Definitely appreciate you coming on. Everyone, I appreciate everyone for listening. If you like what you heard today, give us a like, share, follow, subscribe, rate us 5 stars. Spotify and iTunes, spread this word of mouth. Go look for us on the socials at the Alex Cuesta Show. We'll be back next week. Maybe David will be back. Maybe he'll be locked up by China at that point. I don't know. But we'll see when we get there. Everyone, thank you so much for listening. So long.